All right, welcome to today's training, and we got a hurricane going on back here. Not really, kind of tornadoes, not really, but yes, if you look behind me, the trees are running, and we got some winds here in California. But today, I'm going to talk about building a digital business. So, if you've watched this channel before, first and foremost, it's about the digital game of business. In terms of selling online, marketing online, speaking online, and also about the digital game of money. And I also go live on a regular basis to talk about Bitcoin and also MicroStrategy. Nothing on this channel is financial advice or investment advice or tax or legal advice. Okay. So I'm going to talk with you a little bit about scaling a digital business. For those of you who've never heard me talk about this before, online marketing for me has resulted in the last several years for close to about $50 million in sales, either directly or indirectly. It's been the majority of my marketing and the majority of those sales. And so one of the ways that I've done it is by following the trends and looking at kind of where the puck is going in terms of a hockey term. And so what I mean by that is I'll take you through the journey of where I saw the trends going and where I still see the trends going. So I started out in this space from a speaking perspective back in really 2000, I'd say 11 or so. I started doing like my first really successful seminars, and I started off as a speaker in the space. And as I began to speak, I learned how to do presentations from the stage. And there were three components in speaking that are still relevant to online marketing today, comparing the two things. And, one, first and foremost, speaking was designed from the perspective of three things from my viewpoint. Number one was a really good presentation where you could give good content. Number two was storytelling. And then number three is some type of offer to where you could close people on some type of offer or deal from the stage. And so I built up my business early on doing that. And I learned that those three things have been really timeless as I evolved to go online, because around 2014 and 2015, but I think really 2014 is when I made my first million online. And I did it pretty quickly within about a 45-day period. Once I learned some of the ropes, there was a lot of failures before that, a lot of trying things, a lot of half-baked solutions. But I went from, making millions in the seminar business to then transitioning online and going into the digital space in 2014. And I did a big launch in 2014 in the digital space. And I did about $1.3 million in sales in about a 45-day period. And what I did was, in making that transition, because a lot of times when people go into new things, they forget that there's a lot of timeless skills that kind of transfer from where I was born in the speaking business. Then they transfer to the online space, and now those same ideas transfer to the AI space. And so I'm going to share with you kind of those timeless principles that you can use even today that still work. And in the speaking space at the time when I was speaking from the stage, it was storytelling, it was presentation, and it was closing. And those are three skills today that, if you look at the digital space of online marketing today, if you have a good presentation online, number one, with a good hook, if you have good stories to tell, and if you have a good offer to close on, then you can win in the online marketing space. And so a lot of times when people look to make the transition to go online, they're confused because they get caught up in the technical space of like, what is a funnel, and how do I run a Facebook ad, and what is this AI thing, and how does ChatGPT integrate into it? And so if you understand that the basic of succeeding, whether you're speaking or whether you're doing a presentation online and presenting something through a video or a webinar, or you're doing it through a Facebook post or an Instagram post, these types of things that are important to success are having a good presentation, having a good story to tell, and having the ability to close. It's just three very simple things. And oftentimes people get caught up in the mechanics of thinking it's all about the technology, when the truth is it's actually about the communication first. And that's the senior thing to winning online. So even when I went back and I got into the online space in 2014, which I was a relatively early adopter when you look at coaching, consulting, service businesses moving online, a lot of businesses moved online when COVID hit. I got online in 2014 because I saw that's where the puck was going. Just like I got into Bitcoin in 2018 because I saw where the puck was going. I saw that all things were going digital. And so if you're still in a place where you're thinking like the online space is confusing, let me give you the very, very simple basis of how you actually win online and how you scale online. Because the fundamental thing that gets one to win in business is the ability to communicate to a certain degree. And so no matter if you were, what I call the yabba dabba do phase, where you're like in the Fred Flintstone car and you're going to work and you're pedaling your feet on the ground. And those are the days of walking in and shaking somebody's hand and doing a business meeting face to face. And I'm being a little bit funny and sarcastic because we still do this to some degree, but not to a large degree for those of us who run online businesses. And so, but even during those days, it was a fundamental basis of good communication that you would give to the customer. And even in those days when you met one-on-one with people, which you still do, it was all about a good presentation, a good story, and a good close. And so when I moved out of that world of shaking the hands, and then I evolved to going into speaking on stages, the speaking on stages was still the fundamental thing. It was the same. It was like, I got to have a good presentation. I got to have a good story. I got to have a good close. That was it. That was what speaking was about. And so when I first learned to speak, I mean, this is a funny story of why one might evolve to go online after experiences like this. But when I first learned to speak and I gave my first presentation ever, I was like 22 years old. I was in the life insurance business and the finance business. And I was up in front of a group of like 8 accountants or 10 accountants in a room. And I walked into the room, and at 22, I mean, what do you really know about finance, even though I was in the finance business? And I went to go give this presentation, and I had the entire presentation memorized. Now you might be thinking, well, like, what does presentation have to do with anything? What does it have to do with speaking? What does it have to do with online? It has everything to do with speaking. It has everything to do with online marketing. A good presentation with a good communication wins. So I walk into this room with like 10 CPAs in the room, and I'm about to go deliver this presentation that might be like a 20-minute presentation that I've fully freaking memorized, right? Completely memorized. And I walk into the room and I start delivering the talk. And, that was back in my days where on the weekends I was out drinking like Friday night, Saturday night, recovering Sunday. And I walk in on a Monday morning to give this presentation, and I can like still taste the tequila on my upper lip. And I'm walking up to the stage and I start delivering the talk, and I'm a little bit cocky because I've delivered this presentation like, in practice, like 40, 50, 60, 70 times over and over and over again. I walk on the stage and I start delivering the talk. And as I'm delivering the presentation, I go blank. And I'm not talking like any kind of blank. I'm talking like 2 beads of sweat start coming down my freaking forehead type blank. Like I can't remember my own name. And the harder I try, the more I start to sweat. And I got this light blue shirt on, man. And like sweat is pouring down my shirt, and there's no undershirt underneath. So you can see like the sweat stains, and you see a little bit of light blue. And I got my blazer on. I'm like, I'm going to take my sport jacket off. And I take my sport jacket off, and there's just drips of sweat pouring down, and the CPAs are just sitting there just baffled looking at me like, what is going on? Because I'm like throwing up sweat all over the audience. And I then do the only thing that any sane person would do in that moment. I decide I'm going to take a seat in the front row of the audience with the CPAs, and we're literally watching nobody on the freaking stage, man. Like nobody. Okay. And for like 60 seconds, I'm sitting there, sweat all over me. Like a group of accountants there, we're watching nobody on the stage, and my boss is just sitting there out of the corner just looking at me like, and I'm in like another planet. And I get back up after 60 seconds, and I get up in my soaking wet fur shirt, and I finish the talk, and I deliver the worst presentation ever, presentation in the history of the world. And then I thought at that point I would never, ever, ever get back up on stage. And like weeks went by. I was pretending like I was sick, and and I was like, I'm never getting back up on stage again. I was like, of course, I walked into my boss like a couple weeks later. And I was like, get an entire group in a room 2 months from now. I want to have 40 people there. I'm going to redeem myself and get that accounting firm there in the audience. And 2 months later, I got back up on stage. I delivered the talk. I nailed the talk. And and my speaking business was born. And so I share this with you because from the time I was 22 learning presentations, that skill set of communication is what helped me actually succeed and scale online. And what the difference was when I was going online, whereas when I was offline, like speaking to an audience, or I was one-on-one speaking to somebody, what I wanted to do when I went online was learn how to automate my communication. Does this make sense? So I wanted to learn how to automate my communication. And I knew that the fundamentals to scaling a business online was, number one, you had to have a great communication, and you had to have it in 3 ways. You had to have it in presentation format, where you had a good presentation, you had to have a good story to tell, and you had to have a good close. And that was it. And so all the other things, when I started to go online and learn online, were all my friends who I remember I was in this room once with like all these brilliant marketers. And I got invited because I was a stage guy. I was like the guy that people came to watch on the stage, because I used to sell $100,000 offers from the stage, $200,000 offers from the stage. And I would literally get there, confront the audience, have people stand up, grab an envelope, and stand for their dreams if they wanted to invest in this high ticket offer that I had. And so my peers would travel around to come watch how I did this high ticket offer, because I was really, really good from the stage. And I was really good at telling stories from the stage. But I knew nothing about online marketing at this time in 2014. And so what I discovered was, like, when you want to make a transition into something, it's like, what is the skillness that you have, and what is the likeness between the two things, the one thing you're moving out of and the new thing you're moving into. And so as I looked at online marketing, I was filled in this room with all these online marketers. I'm like, man, they know what they're talking about. They're talking about all these terms that I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, what is the likeness, right? What's similar about speaking from the stage to online marketing? And as I began to dissect online marketing of what my peers were doing, I started to see that they knew how to send a really good message in a presentation format. That was it. And I was like, wow, I, as a speaker, know how to create a good message in a presentation format. Okay. The competitive advantage that I had was that I was a better storyteller than most. So I could have a message, the proper message to hook the audience, the right presentation format, and the right story in there, and then the ability to close. And for me, those became the 4 points that one would need to actually succeed online. And it didn't matter if you look at it today as like, okay, if I want to go do like a podcast, like you could call this a podcast right now, what do I need? I need a good presentation. I need some content in there. I need some stories, and I need a good offer if you want to do an offer at the end of a podcast. Some people in the podcast are like, hey, hit the like button or subscribe to this channel. Some people are like, hey, go get this free thing, right? Sometimes you're watching a podcast and they interrupt you with a commercial. I don't know that I'll ever do that. Maybe that's because the amount of money that people get for that is a high amount. I don't know that I would want to do that with my audience. But they have like commercials that interrupt, and there's a free offer, there's a paid offer, right? So somewhere in a presentation, there's typically a close, but oftentimes in a presentation online, there's free content that you just give away for goodwill to grow the audience. But it starts initially with online marketing can be boiled down to a good message, a presentation format, right? A story, and a close. And those are the 4 principles. So when I went in and did my first like $1.3 million launch, I was in the room with like a bunch of giants in marketing, but I got up and I told them, like, listen, I'm going to do $1 million launch my first time out. And this is how I'm going to do it. And I started to learn from people around me, and I went with the stable operating basis, right? The thing that gives me confidence is, do I have a stable way of operating in this field of skills that I already have that I can take to the new field? And number 1, I knew I could present. Number 2, I knew I could storytell. Number 3, I knew I could close. Number 4, I knew I was a good messenger, but could I create a good message that would hook people online? Because one of the key components to actually winning online is a good message and a good hook. Because if you don't have the good hook in the beginning, it doesn't hook anybody. And then people don't continue down the process. So could it be that online marketing really wasn't that complex as people thought? Where people get caught up in online marketing is like, they're like, Like what's a ClickFunnels? What's a Go High Level? These are just like softwares that you actually build your online real estate on. So I need to put a presentation up online somewhere. I put it in a software called ClickFunnels. I need to put a presentation up somewhere online. I put it in a software called Go High Level. Very similar. So people would get caught up in the technology as the stop, and the technology should never be the stop, right? It actually should be the first thing you should focus on in online marketing is figuring out what's the communication and the message you want to send first. And the truth of the matter is, no matter whether you're meeting with somebody one-on-one, whether you're doing a stage presentation or you're doing an online presentation, it's all about first, what is the message and the communication you want to send first, whether you're shaking hands, whether you're on a stage, or whether you're online. It's the same principle. And these are basic principles that will not change for the most part. Okay. So you learn that. What is the message that I'm sending? The second thing is, who am I sending it to? Okay. And this one you could figure out for years and years and years. I mean, we're changing this. I've been marketing online for the last 10 years. We've spent upwards of, I've been running ads intensively, I would say, for the last 8 years. We've spent approximately 13 million or so in advertising spend, and we've been able to put $1 in and scale it. And so when I figured out how to put $1 in and make $4 back like clockwork, we just kept scaling and scaling and scaling and scaling. And so that came because of, one, we figured out the message first. Two, we figured out who we were talking to. Okay. And today, there's the landscape has changed a little bit because of the competition that's moved online. So you actually need to be better today than you were 8 years ago with the message and who you're talking to, more than you were 8 years ago when I first started on this, right? When I first started really winning big on this, right? Like I did my first $1 million launch in 2014, but to me, I wasn't winning big until I automated the process. So to me, online marketing is, if you're offline right now communicating people and you're sending a message, when you go online, how do you automate the communication? Right? So how do you automate the communication? And then how do you put it in a systematic way that predictably sends your message out every day, sends it to your right audience every day, okay? And gets leads coming in every single day. That was the game that I wanted to figure out. When I figured this out, like really cracked the code, I would say, in 2016. But I started to figure this out in 2015 and started to run it. And so when I figured this out, I mean, for the last 10 years, I've never shut off my ads 24/7, 365. I never, ever for 1 minute shut off my ads. Maybe one time where our Facebook account was shut down briefly, but it was very brief for like minutes. So for 10 years straight, I've had a predictable way of sending my message and my offer out to the marketplace. And so those people have not figured out how to scale online yet. It's because you haven't figured out a predictable way to communicate your message and your offer to the marketplace. And you haven't picked the systematic way that's right for you. But before you do any of that, the first thing you need to figure out, you don't need to figure out the technology first. You don't need to figure out, like, are you going to do a podcast? Are you going to do a webinar presentation that's 45 minutes long and you sell something? Are you going to do a sales video where you sell a product for $37? Are you going to do a video sales letter that gets somebody to book a free consultation? Like, there's lots of ways to skin a cat. You know what I'm saying? And to say that there's only one way is just not true, but you need to pick one approach when you're starting online marketing that you're going to stick to and win with. One approach. Okay? And if you try 4 different avenues when you first start and you don't perfect one, you won't win. So for me, 10 years ago, 10 years ago I started running ads, but really 8 years ago we cracked the code. So 8 years ago in cracking the code, I decided this was going to be the avenue of running ads. Okay? And that was going to be the main way of us automating our message and our offer to the marketplace. And we're going to pick one strategy at the time and run that strategy. And I can proudly say that for 8 years, we've been running the same strategy successfully and profitably for 8 years. That's freaking good, man. Okay. And it doesn't mean I don't innovate and do new things, but I've got one predictable system that I know works and I know it always works, right? Okay. And so you need to figure out what your one predictable strategy is going to be when you go online to scale a business and win building a business. Okay. That's so important and critical to success. Versus I'm going to do a bunch of half-baked strategies and I'm going to try this and try this and try this and try this, and I'm never going to get any real results, because one who has the ability to confront something and continue to confront the thing until they execute it properly will win. But the person who has low confront and cannot continue to confront the thing and confront the thing and confront the thing and confront the thing until you get to the bottom and you figure out the layers and layers and layers beneath it and you start winning, until you have that ability to confront it, you won't win. Because anything you dive into initially, you might have some wins out of the gate, but you're going to have some losses. And some of those losses are going to hit you back right in the face hard. And if you don't spring back and boom, confront it again and confront it again, you're not going to win, particularly in the online marketing space. And here's why. In the traditional world, and this is the comparable magnitude of why, and this is not financial advice, investment advice, but this is the comparable magnitude of why Bitcoin is just going to slaughter all the other investments out there. Okay. And this is it's a great metaphor for people who have businesses and they run them that are not online fully, and people who have businesses that run them online. And when you look at this, people who run businesses online, you can't compete with the speed and the power and the 24/7, 365 nature. Because my business runs 24/7, 365. But if you take somebody who runs a business who doesn't work on the weekends, or doesn't have an automated system or machine, or doesn't have the store open all the time, you can't compete with the speed and the power. You can't. And that speed and that power gives me flexibility. Versus somebody who runs a business that doesn't rely on online marketing, and doesn't have the speed of an automatic system sending people in all the time, without the actual contribution of individuals. And by the way, with AI coming down the pike, AI is going to replace a lot of jobs. So we're going to be automated more and more and more and more. All right. So you have to think about, how are you going to automate your business in a way that frees you up to do the things that are in alignment with your skill set. But if you look at the analogy that I'm using, people who run an offline business, like, hey, let's go shake some hands. Let's go shake some hands. Let's do this. Or let's go to some meetings and meet with some people. Not that most business owners still do that to some degree, but you compare that to a business that's online and digital, you can't compete with the power and the speed. And then you can compare that to like the banking system. If you want to switch from business to money, and you want to look at like the banking system of like a banking system that is closed on the weekends, a banking system that works 9 to 5, a banking system that has high transfer fees and has antiquated technology and still deposits like physical checks where people walk in with, like, who does that, man? Right? Like, I got a check the other day. I didn't even know what to do with it, man. Like, the check sitting here, like, I didn't even know what to do with the thing. Like, I deposit them digitally, and then they were telling me that it was going to take like 10 days for them to release the funds, which doesn't make any sense. They eventually ended up releasing them like right away. But like that whole antiquated technology is dead. It's dead, right? And that banking system, as you'll see, is going to die out over time unless it innovates into new ways of doing things digitally and faster. So a business is the same thing, right? A bank that's open 5 days a week can't compete with digital currency that runs 24/7, 365. A business that's open 5 days a week, 9 to 5, can't compete with a digital online business that's running 24/7, 365. So you got to get speed in. So then if you're looking at it and you're going, okay, what would be the first step for me to scale a business online digitally? The first thing you would be looking at is, number one, what is the message that I want to send and who am I sending it to? The second thing I would want to look at is, how would I present this communication to somebody? The third thing I would obviously look at is like, okay, what is the thing that I'm selling? Obviously, I got to have a product to sell, but I would first be looking at, right, what is the message I want to send? How do I want to present the value of what I have? And then third, I would introduce the product. And then I would go, great. So from that message, number one, number two, who I communicate it to, number three, how I present it, and number four, how do I close people on the deal? That's how I approach all things online marketing. And I just look through that lens. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Message, presentation, more message, client that I'm talking to, presentation, close. Been doing it forever. So if you look at that and you go, great, so that is the basis of communication, then you need to look at the vehicle of how you actually want to deliver to people online. And you have a lot of options for the vehicle, lots of options. But what do you want it to be? And then you do some research out there. And so in doing research, you want to look at 3 different options that resonate with you, right? So if you're kind of like sitting here and going, okay, so I'm going to sell sales services to the marketplace. Number 1, I would be great. What is my message? So my message might be something like how to close more high ticket deals and work remotely from anywhere in the world so you can double your income. That would be a message. Who am I communicating to? People who want to work virtually. People who are already in sales. People who want to make 6-figure income or multi-6-figure income. My target audience would be somewhere between 25 and 38. And that would be my target. And then I would target that audience. And then I would go, okay, what would I present to that audience? And so the basic of online marketing first, or any presentation, is what is the problem people are facing? So I would first write down what are the 3 problems that that person is facing. So I would go, okay, I'm looking at a salesperson. They're 25 to 38. Let's just pick a guy who's 32 years old. He's a salesperson. Okay, he's hovering around the 6-figure mark, but he's working in kind of an antiquated marketplace. He wants to work remotely. So his challenge is, number 1, is he's not remote or working from home. His challenge 2 is he doesn't have the lifestyle he wants because he has to go to the office every day. His challenge number 3 is he's not quite making the income. He's 32 years old. He's right around the 6-figure mark. He thought he would be at $500,000 already. He's not. Okay. His other challenge is he doesn't feel like he's getting really, really great training. He wants to be trained. He wants to be really great. He wants to be confident in closing. He's not fully confident in how to close. And his other great challenge is he wants to close higher ticket deals that are like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. Great. So now I've listed the challenges of my ideal client. Then I go, great, what outcomes could I offer up to this person? Great. So you see the methodology here. What's the message I'm sending? Who am I talking to specifically? What challenges do they have? What's their challenge? And list them out. This challenge, this challenge, this challenge. And then what opportunity can I offer them up? What opportunity could I offer them up? And then you just write that down. So if I'm selling to somebody who wants to get into high ticket sales, I'd be like, the opportunity I can offer up is you can sell virtually or remotely. Number 1, right? Number 2, the opportunity I could offer up is potential to make $500,000 in income. Number 3, I could offer up a more flexible work schedule where you're going to work a lot, but you can choose your own hours. Number 4, I could offer up great training, world-class training, some of the top sales training in the world, because very few people have sold from the stage, have sold online, have sold on podcasts, have sold on webinars, have sold on live streams, have sold on launches, have sold one-on-one, have sold in small groups, have sold and have presented and performed in theater like I have doing a one-man show. So my sales training, I believe, is superior to most out there because of my experience in sales. So I would be selling them on those opportunities. And then I would tell them a story. And in that presentation where I talk about challenges and opportunities, I would have some story about me and I would have some story about a client. So fundamentally, that's how you make a great presentation, right? You put those components in. A recap of this, you're going to recap on it. So number 1, how do you go online? You go online first by figuring out, 1, what is your message? You got a general sense of the message. 2, you make the message more specific by figuring out who's my ideal client or who's my perfect client. Number 3, you figure out what are the 3 challenges, but you really want to list out 7, 8, 9 challenges of that customer, and you list out all the challenges of that ideal client. Next, what are all the opportunities of why they would want to come, buy your offer, listen to what you're saying, be interested in what you're talking about? What are all the opportunities or the possible outcomes that they would get? So you list all of those down. And then finally, how do I make it real with stories to make the presentation real to the person? Now you take that, and that is a formula for success in any online platform. Okay, it's a formula for success in any online platform. I remember a friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine today, and he came to one of my events back in years ago, and he was in the audience, chiropractor, making like $200K a year, super good guy, and he was watching my presentation from the stage. And at that time, and we still teach this, But at that time, I made an offer and I was like, I'm going to teach you how to lead seminars, and I'm going to teach you how to like lead workshops and lead group events. And so I made this offer from the stage, and it was $100,000 offer to work with me at the time. And this was back in maybe 2015, something like that. And I made the offer, and you know, he stood up and he's like, yeah, I want to do this thing. And so I sat down with him and his girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife. And we're sitting down at the table. I was like, great. So you ready to do this thing? He's like, yeah, we totally want to do this. And I was like, great, let's do it. So he's like, yeah, but we don't have the money. And I go, oh, okay. Well, why'd you stand up? And he goes, well, we just feel called that we like really need to do this thing. And so we just know we want to do it, and we know we want to figure it out. And I'm like, great. Okay. And so what I instantly do is go through my sales conversation, which is the money conversation. I drop in and I go, great. So tell me about your money situation. What do you want to know? Anything you want to tell me? Number one rule of sales, get people talking about money. Just get them talking about it. If you want to get to their money, you get them talking about money. So whatever you want to tell me, oh, we don't have a lot of money. Well, what does that mean? Well, you know, I just haven't saved a lot of money. Go, great. So let's talk about your savings account. How much you got in savings? And I go right in. And he goes, well, you know, I don't have much in savings. I got like a few $1,000s, right? Okay, got it. How about credit cards? Do you have any credit cards? No, I got bad credit and never really took out credit. Took out some cards a while ago and just didn't work out. So I don't have any credit. Okay. How about investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds? No, nothing. How about like an IRA account or 401k account? No, I got nothing. Okay. Any investments at all whatsoever? No, nothing. Anything under the sun, like, you know, like a rainy day fund, an emergency fund. He goes, He goes, yeah, like my mother passed away a couple years ago, and she left me like $100,000 as an emergency fund or like a rainy day fund. And I just look at him and I smile and I go, seems like it might be raining a little bit, huh? And instantly he pulled the trigger and he invested $100,000 to work with me. This is years ago. This is not an offer I'm making right now. And so he invested, and then we taught him how to take his business from a business that was in his office as a chiropractor making $200,000 a year and transform the business model into sending a better message. And I said to him, the first step to transform from your current business model to a more advantageous business model where you go one to many, whether you're doing presentations in person, whether you're doing presentations online, whether you're doing online marketing, the first step is to figure out how to communicate that message in a simple way and then figure out who your ideal client is. I said, so what do you do? And as a chiropractor, he started talking about what he does. And it was literally like UFOs were flying over his head. I had no idea what this guy was talking about. And the basic mistake that most experts make in going online is they have verbiage and nomenclature, meaning a vocabulary in their industry that they use that they think the general public understands, and they do not. And so they talk about what they do in that verbiage and nomenclature because they're used to it, number one. Number two, maybe they want to sound smart, but your client doesn't care and doesn't understand and only is interested in the outcomes of what you deliver. And so I said, listen, everything you just told me, one, doesn't make sense, and two, you need to throw it away. And I said, the way that I'm going to help you transition from the one-to-one model to the one-to-many model, which is the online model, first, I led him into doing presentations from the stage and leading workshops. And then second, I gave him principles and taught him about going into online marketing. And I shared with him how you go into online marketing. I shared the one-to-many model. I said, the first thing you need to figure out is how to communicate that thing that you're talking about as a chiropractor that sounds like UFOs are flying over your head. You need to communicate it simply. It's like, how do I do that? I go, great. First thing I need to know is, who do you work with? And he started telling me about his clientele. And I said, this is great. Like, you're working on people who are paying $50 to work with you when they come in the office. Is this the ideal client? He's like, no. And I said, who would be the ideal client? Who have you always really wanted to work with? He's like, men. I'm like, great. And then tell me about these men. Are they like men who are making $10,000 a year? Or are they men who are making $100,000? Or high achieving men making $100,000, $200,000 a year? Great. Now we got an audience. Okay. Great. What outcomes do these men want? But before we get there, what challenges are they facing in their life? Now, this is a chiropractor, right? He's like, well, these men are this, and he starts to go through the challenges. And I said, what outcomes do you want them to have? Like, when you work on somebody as a chiropractor, when they get off the table, what happens? He's like, well, sometimes I get them out of pain. I said, yeah, but like a high achiever will work through the pain, dude. Like they want to be out of pain, but they'll work through the pain because they're going to a result and an outcome. They're working through the pain to get to an outcome. So the pain, solving the pain for the high achiever is not the most senior thing, dude. The most senior thing is the outcomes they want. What do they really want? A high achieving entrepreneur, they want productivity. They want money. They want growth. They want income. They want to help people. They want to do things that make a mark in the world. Great. So get them out of pain, but sell the idea that you're going to help high achieving men, improve their productivity, have more passion in their lives, have more energy in their lives, have bigger outcomes in their life, have bigger growth in their life. So I said, we're just going to call your brand Man on Fire. Men get off the table. You work on them as a chiropractor. Man on Fire. Boom, they're on fire. And the brand was born, and it was born because people could understand what that meant and who we were talking to in 3 words, guys. Just like when I created my brand years ago called Message to Millions, which is still an online course that I sell. It still sells over and over, and we sell thousands and thousands and thousands of those. And Message to Millions is still a timeless brand because people want to get their message to millions. Message to Millions, 3 words. Man on Fire, 3 words. So this is like the main thing that when you really look at it, it's the understanding of what really does somebody need to do to actually communicate a message. They need to make it simple. It needs to be super, 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 super simple. Okay. So that's the ideology of like, how do you go online? And so first thing we built a brand. Second thing, we communicated a message on it. But more importantly, it was the message that was senior to the brand or any idea of what the brand was going to look like. It was the message. It was who we were talking to. And then finally, as a third piece, it was basically the idea and understanding that we were going to present this to people in a way that they could understand, where we're going to talk about outcomes. We're going to talk about their challenges. And then at the end of that presentation, there was going to be some type of offer. So I said to him, if you just do this, we can take that out to the seminar marketplace. And I said, what do you want to do first? He says, I want to do seminars. I go, great. So your seminar, take out your calendar. He pulls out his calendar. I go, great. I said, what's the date today? He goes, it's January. I said, fantastic. I said, February, March, April, pull up the calendar in April. He goes, yeah. I said, pick a Friday. He picks a Friday. I go, great. So April 12th, you're going to do your first event, and it's going to be a 2.5-day event. Done. Put it in the calendar. And so that was the first thing we did to help him with his first seminar. Put it right in the calendar. Great. He's like, well, what am I going to talk on? I said, we're going to talk on what we just created. Man on Fire. We're going to talk on what we just created in terms of the problems and the outcomes. We're going to tell stories. And then you're going to put this into a seminar format where you can give them an experience of your work, which is chiropractic for him. But you can also teach principles around what you're doing, and you can create an experience for people, and people will be willing to pay more for an experience. And he says, what do you mean by the experience? I said, when I was 22 and I made 6 figures, you hear that in the background? This is literally like 20-mile-per-hour winds in California right now. Okay. I'm a little bit high up, so the winds are going nuts. But I said, he said, what do you mean by experience? I said, listen, when I was 22 years old, I had a coach by the name of Dan Sullivan. In fact, I was making 6 figures at the time at 22. And my boss at the time snuck me into this group with permission with 7-figure and 8-figure producers. And so as I was sitting in the group with this guy, Dan Sullivan, one of the things he was talking about was experiences. And he says, like, if you make a list here of like the products that you sell, just put down the products, you make a list of all the products you sell, make a list of the services that you sell, and you make a list of the services you sell. And then in the third column, he goes, make a list of the experiences. And people were like, well, what are experiences? And he said, number one, he says, products are commoditized. He says, all the products you list down, they're commoditized. Services, commoditized too. And he says, but the experience, he says, the experiences, he's like, that's the reason people work with you. That's like what he called as the unique ability that one has. It's something that you've always had. You've been doing it all your life. You love doing it. The truth is you do it for free. You love it that damn much. But you can get highly paid for it. And that's the thing that the customers say about you. And they're like, if you ask them, like, what is the real reason why you wanted to work with me? They'll list all those things about you and who you are and the type of experience they have around you and what it's like to be connected to you and like what value you add to their life. And you get all these things. You'll see all these things that you never thought about because you thought all day long they're buying the product and they're buying the service. And yeah, that goes in some situations where I'm going to buy, a pack of gum. I'm buying the product. But also, I'm buying the story behind the pack of gum. I'm buying the people that are representing the pack of gum. I'm buying maybe the experience that I get in terms of like I go out and I get the packaging of the thing and maybe the story that goes along with it's cool. And I can tell my friends about this cool gum that's rare that I own. Like there's an experience that you're getting, not just the product. There's a story about it. There's a brand about it. And so Dan was talking to us about this. And so I never forgot that. And so as I told my friend as he's going to do his first seminar, I said, you're going to get out there and you have an expertise, you have a skill set, but there's an experience that you create as an individual that's totally unique. So when you get into a seminar room and you go to deliver this experience, you're going to blow people's minds because this ability, this talent, this skill, this knowledge, who you are, all comes out in this experience that customers get. And they're attracted to it for some reason. They can't put their finger on it because it's the experience. And I said, that's why they're going to keep coming back to your seminars. That's why they're going to keep buying from you. That's why you're going to love doing it. And so we did it for him. And his first event, this is like, not everybody does this, but his first event years ago, it's like 2015, 16, he does like 140,000 his first event. And then he goes on, does like $500,000 that year in seminars. And then he goes online and eventually scales his business up to his highest. At his height, he was at 4 million. And we transformed the brand by taking a brand that was communicated in a complex way. So we have brands in the marketplace, and this is perhaps one of the problems with industries to a certain degree, from my viewpoint. And some of this I believe is done on purpose, and some of this is just people don't know better, right? So we'll go with the giving the benefit of the doubt that sometimes people don't know better. But in most industries, and you have to have it in industry, like there's certain words and vocabularies in an industry that are used that are just unique to that industry. But a true expert takes the words and puts them in a 5th grade level. Okay. And so you have to simplify things for people. And so when you look at the basis of an industry, it's complex. And most of the time. And so when you're communicating a message, you got to somehow take what you're doing in the industry, drop the language, convert the message into a 3rd or 5th grade language, and then go, how would I communicate this message to my ideal customer? And who is the person that I'm speaking to? If I'm in the medical field, I'm not speaking to a disease, I'm speaking to a person. If I'm in the chiropractic field, I'm not speaking to a back, I'm speaking to an individual. If I'm in the field of sales, I'm not speaking to somebody's bank account. I'm speaking to the person. And then the other thing, when you're looking to communicate a message online, you don't need to just look at one communication of like, oh, here's my communication of what I do, and here's the one outcome I deliver. So let's say I'm a chiropractor. Okay, I get people out of pain so they can be relieved of pain. But that's not actually the full story. Like, okay, if you get a man, let's say, out of pain, who's 50 years old, and he's out of pain, and now he has relief, what can he do? Well, he can go out and he can exercise. And when he exercises, what happens? He's more fit. And when he's more fit, what happens? He has more confidence. And when he has more confidence, what he's more productive, and he gets into more games. And he's more productive. What happens? Well, he has more energy and he's happier. So he's happier. And then when he goes to work, what happens? He takes that energy into work, and he's more productive at work. He can confront more things because he feels better. He goes down and does it. He makes more income. He gets promoted. He has another career. And all of a sudden, he just started a new business. And now he's got a business. He's moving out of a career, or maybe he's just getting promoted in the career. He's super happy. He has lots of energy. He feels fit. He goes back to his relationship with his wife because he feels fit and he's exercising all the time now. They have a better sex life. They're happier. They're more connected. The relationship's better. They're going on date nights now. He's putting energy into that because he has time for everything. All of a sudden, life's getting better. He's giving out to causes now and charitable causes because he wants to contribute to mankind, because he realizes it's not just about my body and being in pain. I all of a sudden feel better. Now I want to help my kids. I want to help my wife. I want to help the people at work. I want to help them thrive. I want to play a game for other people and help other people win. I want to help the planet. I want to donate to causes. I want to be charitable. I want the planet to win. And now I have energy for all the different elements of life, not just my back and my pain. Sell that shit, man. Versus let's get you out of pain. You know? That's not what people want, right? It's the thing they need in the moment to get out of pain. So it's not like you should gloss over that, but what do they want? So when you're talking to an individual, you're talking to multiple elements or dynamics. It's not just the individual that you're selling to. Let's say I'm selling a business service. You're not just selling a business service. At the end of the day, that's what they buy, but you're selling the outcomes that that business service produces. I mean, try talking about online marketing like I'm talking about right now. Nobody's buying online marketing. Nobody's signing up to go, I want to be a marketer. Like I teach this stuff. I teach speaking, I teach sales, I teach online marketing, I teach about money, I teach about all these different elements. But online marketing is probably the least interesting thing of all of them to me, because it's the least interesting thing to teach per se. If you get into the mechanics of like, let me talk to you about how an online sales funnel works. It's the least interesting. Now you can put it in ways of understanding it through communication, and communication is fascinating to me because communication is good, right? And there's a message in there, and there's a person in there, and there's something you want to present to that person, and there's a story you want to tell so you can relate to that person, and there's something you want to close them on so you can help that person. That is the basis of what online marketing actually is at the root, and then the mechanics of the thing that you put it in, like the funnel that nobody understands, that now you streamline the communication in a sequential, logical sequence to where now the communication goes here, gives them a piece of communication here, second piece of communication here, third piece of communication here, leads them to the purchase of the product. Boom. Now they got it. So sequentially on the right gradient, like, hey, you're not going to go from grade 0 to grade 12. It's not like you're going to come on a podcast or like come on an ad and be like, hey, buy my $50,000 product or service. You're not going to do that because it's out gradient. Right? So communication given in pieces that are like, okay, the right piece here, a little bit more here, right here in the right sequence, leads the person through the funnel, funnels them. The funnel is the communication sequence that gets the person to make the purchase, that ultimately provides an exchange with the person to help them, so that that person can take that thing and not get outcomes. If you're selling them a marketing funnel or a sales product, not get outcomes that are based solely on, I now have a marketing funnel. No, I could then go out and get some leads. I could get my voice heard. I could get some clients. I could help some people. I could make some money. I could live virtually. I could travel. I could be on the phone taking business calls. I could be talking to people all across the planet from anywhere in the world, anytime, any place. I could have automation to where my message goes out 24/7, 365, even when I'm sleeping. I could make an impact in the world. I could grow an audience. All of a sudden, because I have that audience, I could become an artist and do things artistically. I could impact people at higher levels doing that. And now, all of a sudden, online marketing becomes all those things versus I now have a funnel and a technology thing that is a problem. Because that's what your customers are seeing, is they're seeing that thing as a problem, right? Because that's the language that we're using in that space of like this technical thing or this technical point in this industry. Your clients don't care about the technical point. They don't care, you know? So they want the outcome. And so that's what you're doing. You're selling the outcome. What's up, John? What's up, Sean? What's up, Martin? Joe, you're selling the outcome. And so to recap what we're doing here, then we're going to close out on this. Share this, like this, tell your friends. I'm going to be giving great content in the digital space on many different topics, from online speaking, online selling, online sales, overall presentation, storytelling, all these different elements. So to boil it down and just recap the things that I want you to take away from this, if you're in the online marketing space, this applies to you. If you're getting into the online marketing space, this applies to you. But the basic essential that one needs to succeed in the online marketing space is simple. Number one, you need to have a message. That's the first thing. So you got to mock something up in a 3rd or 5th grade level that any customer could understand. I don't care what you do. Mock it up, make it up, because in the first entry, the first iteration of this message, that's not going to be your winner 1 month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 8 months from now. Every time we launch a client business online and we look at it, we're like, dude, like we're going to create the image, mock it up, but you need to optimize the image, optimize the message to where you fine tune it over time to get it more and more dialed in. But in the first thing, you need to make it up. And here's the thing, in most industries, what you make up in a 3rd or 5th grade level is going to be better than what you're telling people right now. Because most of how you communicate things right now to the customer, they don't understand what the hell you're talking about. Because you're using it from the perspective of your wisdom and knowledge of how long you've been doing your craft. And in marketing and communication, you can never take on the vantage point from your viewpoint. You don't communicate from your viewpoint. You communicate from the customer's viewpoint. You switch hats and you go, if I'm receiving this as a customer in a 5th grade level, how would I want to receive this? And you break it down that simply. Okay? And so the message, you need to reinvent whatever message you have in a simple way of like, if I'm the customer, could I receive this in a 5th grade language? And you'll get a simple message. So you start with a simple message. Then figure out who you're talking to. Step 2. Who are you talking to? And this is like I don't know, just make it up. We need something to test. We ain't going to be right out of the gates, right? Yeah, online recruiting, Caesar, is viable to being done using funnels. Any stuff. We just help somebody launch an online funnel to recruit people for their company where they want to hire new people, right? Online marketing can be used for anything, because think of it, if whatever communication you have that you want to send out about your offer, it can be done through online marketing. Okay. So the second thing is you gotta figure out who you're talking to. And so when you're talking to somebody, you'll go, great. So who are you talking to? Somebody between 35 and 55, but that is not a somebody, that is a many. So you got to get a somebody, but I want to talk to people with 35, 40, 55. It's okay. When you first make a message, just pick an age. We might decide that we're talking to a 40-year-old who makes $500,000 a year. And then we might decide that, wow, that applies to a 45-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old. And so when we do our marketing, we might go out to people from age 30 to 50. Doesn't matter, right? So we might do that. Doesn't matter. But you, in the beginning, when you're trying to hone in the message, you just like, what's the one person I'm talking to, communicating in 3rd to 5th grade level? Okay. Finally, or third, what are the challenges that this person faces? What challenges do they face? That's the third thing. Next, what are the outcomes that they want? Right now, you're looking at this one person. You can figure out the outcome this guy wants or this woman wants as a person. What are the outcomes specifically they want? Then, what story could you tell them to make it real? Why do you tell stories? Well, one, they're fun and entertaining. People like them. So never forget that in a presentation, like, people love stories, period. Like when I sell on stage and I sell really, really big packages on stage, I got to go in a minute. When I sell really big packages, I always tell stories. Always. 30% of my pitch is stories, because the story makes it real. So then you put a story that makes it real, and then you go in for the close. And that is the basic of any presentation, whether you're one-on-one with somebody. That's the basic of any presentation if you're speaking from the stage. That's the basic of any presentation if you're going online to do a sales video, a webinar. That is the basic of presentation. And when you figure that out and you understand how to communicate through that lens, online marketing does not become a anomaly or a difficult thing anymore. It becomes a communication. And then you got to figure out what is the technology you're going to use. But even senior to that, before that, what's the one strategy first of like, great, okay, am I going to do like a webinar and I'm going to automate that? Am I going to do like where I give something free and then I sell something right away? Am I going to take somebody straight to a free consultation and get on the phone and sell them services or products? Like, then what's the strategy I want to implement? Then you figure out the technology. Technology is the last thing. The communication is senior to the technology. All right. Hope it serves you guys. Share it with a friend if you think it's helpful for somebody. And then I'll be doing more of these. I have another one coming up, I think next week or maybe later this week. Hope it serves you. See you guys on the flip side. And I got to go to another meeting. Cheers.